Episode 3. Episode 3. Real Talk, No Bull. We have guest on tonight, Ryan McCarthy from One Talk Podcast. Ryan's quite a prolific podcaster, so it's really cool to have him on, have a bit of experience. Ryan's going to share his story with us tonight, which we're super grateful and appreciative of. And we're just going to kick into it. So Ryan gave us a little synopsis of himself before tonight, and so I'll just give that a little breakdown. So welcome, Ryan.
Well, thanks for having me, boys.
Welcome, mate.
It's good to see what you've created. You know, like from it being an idea to creating it, and then actually being here today is like it's unreal. It all happened quickly as well.
Yeah.
Like I know what it takes to get a podcast started and get it going and get all the pieces together. But you have done it way quicker than I did, and you're doing really well. So props to you, boys. And
that's the ADHD.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
That's all good, man. Yeah, it's a trio thing, so you know, we're all band off each other. So yeah, it's good.
100%.
It's good. Okay, so Ryan, you're addicted to drugs at age 11. You're sober at 18. You got kicked out of high school. You battle with depression and anxiety and the suicide ideation around the age of 18 to 20. You overcame all of those challenges by sort of 20. Then you started a career in your mental health at age 20 to 21. You worked in evidential support and working as case manager for adult mental health and youth worker. You started your podcasting online in 2018 for mental health awareness. You started the One Talk in February 21, is that correct?
Yeah, February 21 for the podcast.
And then you spent the last 5 years also running retreats and workshops and events and mindfulness clinics and doing live audience podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
Mate, massive.
Actually sounds crazy when I hear it out loud.
I know, man.
That's
I know.
crazy.
You know, because you know when you're on the mission and you're just doing the thing and then you don't actually reflect on it because you're so focused on what the next thing is.
Yeah.
And actually hearing it out loud, I'm like, yeah, well, like quite a bit's happened in the last 7 years or the last 27 years, should I say.
Yeah,
but,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal, man. It sounds very jam-packed, very full on, very full-on life there.
Yeah, it was a good first season of a TV show. So
Yeah.
it was like season 1 of Game of Thrones, just everything was going on.
Yeah, unreal, man, unreal. So where are we going to kick it off, Braden?
Well, we're going to kick it off with early life and struggles, school and family, really.
Awesome.
So I guess I'll take over with question 1.
Yeah, man.
So can you take us back to a stage in your younger years that led you to, I guess, taking drugs, and what was going on in your life for you to resort to that?
Good question. I guess when I'll reflect back now, there probably was a reason why I began using substances. But at the time, I wasn't seeking to numb myself. The way it started was I was 11 years old and my mate got some weed and he's offered me a puff of the joint. And at the time, like my mum and dad smoked cigarettes. So I knew what cigarettes were. I didn't know what weed was. So like, yeah, I'll have a smoke. Why not? I see a lot of people smoking cigarettes. I'll have a go. And I smoked it. And I was like, wait, this is not ciggies. This is something a bit different. And the way it made me feel, that was the first ever time in my life where I didn't feel chaotic, you know. I didn't feel stressed or on edge. Like I just felt calm. And straight away I was like, all right, well, I need to do this again. Which then led into more things of like, all right, I need to try and find more drugs or find different ways to, I guess, get this edge feeling, you know, calm. And yeah, so I'll say that would be the first reason why. It's just, I think, because at the time, mum and dad did split. They got divorced. Dad went back to the UK because I'm originally from England. Mum stayed in Queensland, but my sister was in Adelaide. Brother went back to the UK. So family ended up getting scattered around the time I started to use drugs. So when I reflect back now, I'll probably pinpoint it to that because there wasn't any certainty in my life or much structure because there was so much going on behind the scenes. So maybe I was looking for something to cling on to. But at the time, I wasn't aware of any of that. It was just more so, it's fun.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't read the rest of the question. I stuffed this part up. But
Okay.
how did it affect your school life at that age?
Yeah, well, to be honest, my school life was pretty nuts to begin with. Like when I left England when I was 8 years old. I think it was my first or second day of school in Australia, and I got suspended. Like I was a pretty problem kid growing up. I just loved conflict, chaos. Like it was just me. I was a bit of a wild child, you know. And then when I started doing drugs, it just made me want to engage less in the things like school. But also, I think it's because like so much was going on in my personal life with family splitting up and growing up without many adults in my life, I think I just started to resent adults in general, which ended up being teachers, and started to resent authority. So I was just always pushing back. So from about grade 8 to grade 11, when I got kicked out, I reckon I was suspended maybe 2 or 3 times a term.
Wow.
Yeah, on average.
Oh, a term.
Yeah, probably, yeah,
Yeah,
to be honest. And probably grade 9 to grade 11. We had our first lunch break at 11 o'clock, and I wouldn't get to school till 11 o'clock every day, just so I could just, miss the first couple of classes, play some handball with the boys. Usually get to school stoned, play handball, go to one class, do second lunch and go home. It was like that every day. So to be honest, I was pretty surprised school even kept me in for that long. But yeah, it definitely did affect my schooling because, from grade 8, I just disassociated from education, didn't do any exams, barely did any assignments, just disengaged really.
Okay. And you decided to sober up at around 18. What was the biggest challenges that you faced in your early years of sobriety?
Biggest challenges, because the way I think of it is like getting addicted to drugs at 11. I think around that age is when you first start developing like some sort of consciousness as well, and you start becoming more aware of emotions and how you feel. But because of the age 11, I numbed it straight away. From 11 till 18, I didn't really process any emotions, didn't really feel anything. It was just high majority of the time. So when I first got clean, there was like all these suppressed things finally had a light on them. And I was like, I didn't know what any of these things were. Like when I was 18, I didn't even know what depression was or what anxiety was. Yeah. But these just came straight into my life because for so long I numbed them and suppressed them. Yeah. So the biggest challenges were, I'd say, anxiety, depression, worthlessness, just a lot of negative self-talk. It got to the point like even my best mate, like growing up through school, I was quite a social person. Like I used to go to a lot of house parties and a lot of people knew me. So I never had struggles with social settings. But as soon as I quit drugs, like I locked myself in the room. And even with my best mate coming over, like I'd knock on the door and he's like, Ryan, you going to come out and say hello? And I wouldn't even respond to him. Like I'd literally just lock myself in my room, be shaking physically. And I was like that for a while, but thankfully my mate who used to come over, he just kept coming over and eventually got me out the room, eventually got me onto the balcony, and then over time got better with it. But to answer your question, yeah, probably depression, anxiety, and they were the biggest things that I struggled with to begin with.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the thing I love about this is like I get to hear it all firsthand, and just the thought of you not knowing what those original feelings were.
Yeah.
It just,
like not knowing what they were, but then also not having the resources or tools to deal with them. Because usually before, like, I wouldn't say I never felt depression or anxiety, but if I ever did, I could just get on. Yeah. Like, it'd rather be weed. When I started to get a bit older, I started smoking, like, synthetic weed and transitioned to, like, pills, MDMA. Got to a point where I couldn't get on the weed, so I just took, like, a box of codeine. If I couldn't get onto weed, then I'm just smoking ice. So, like, it just became to a point where I was just grabbing onto anything just to numb feelings. But then once I just made the decision to quit, it was like I had no idea of any resources to go to. So I was kind of just sitting there and just self-destructing.
Shit.
Yeah,
okay. So once you became sober, what ways did you find to cope with depression, anxiety, and the suicidal ideation?
I'd say the biggest thing to begin with is going to the gym. There's a gym on Bribie where I grew up called Average Joel's Gym, and the owner of Joel's Gym, his name's Joel, ironically, but he's an absolute legend. He literally took me under his wing, and I think because he knew me, because I was like, from the age of 15, I was like loosely going to the gym, but it was mainly just to shoot hoops and to kick the soccer ball. Like I wasn't going to lift weights, so Joel always knew me and the boys and what we were about. But I think once I got clean, he could see I was struggling a bit, so I think he never mentioned it to me, but I think he definitely took me under his wing and helped me at the gym be more comfortable. And because when I first walked into the gym, I couldn't even bench press just a stick that you stretch with. Like I was super underweight and I was really skinny, but yeah, he really looked after me. So I think the first thing that really helped me was exercise, because I found getting into my body helped me get out of my head.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
Well, we don't like using the word journey on this show, do we? It's all about the quest.
It's all about the quest, mate.
So what moment or experience triggered your quest to healing or transformation?
For drugs and alcohol and mental health, or do you want? I can give 2 answers for each.
Give
so
both.
I've got different ones. So
do it.
For substance abuse, it was a build-up, because I think I tried to quit 100 times before I quit. You know, I was like, I'll quit, and then a week later, not even a week later, that same night I'm back on. And it was like that for so long.
The idea was there, though.
Yeah, the idea was
The
there.
idea
So I
was
think from about just before I went to schoolies, that's when I had a little bit of thoughts like, what am I doing? Because like I was taking a lot of pills and I was like just very scattered. And I got to a point where I was getting these random like head twitches a lot, and I was just started to notice myself like kind of just bugging out a bit too much. So before I went to schoolies, and I was about 16, 17, that's when I started to think like maybe you should start, you know, find another way. But I never pursued it. But then when I went to schoolies, as you know, most people do, unfortunately, it's not the healthiest thing. But I probably didn't sleep much that week. Took a lot of drugs. Came back at the end of it, and I remember just being in the state that I was like kind of scared of my own mind because I've never felt like so scattered in my life. So that was a big moment for me. I'm sitting at that point and I was like, all right, I do all these substances, I do all these patterns. Like, what's the one thing I can quit that will give me the belief to change my life? I'm like, the one thing I can't go without is marijuana, because I would start up as soon as I wake up, smoke all day until I go to sleep. And to give you a bit of a picture, I worked at a restaurant as a chef, and I was working with my mate at the time, and I worked there for about a year and a half. And the owner, one of the owners, worked out the front, and she used to come in the kitchen to pick up the food and stuff like that. And the one day I couldn't get on, and I went to work sober. In 18 months, she came in and complained to my boss saying, "Is Ryan high?" The one day I was sober. So that kind of like paints a picture of like where I was at that point.
Yeah.
So
And that's like I was saying last week, and last week's, it's you. It makes you feel normal. And when
Absolutely.
you don't have it,
yeah,
you don't feel normal.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
I felt weird when I wasn't on it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is not me. Like,
Yeah.
it was like an identity crisis if I didn't have it.
Yeah.
So then I started to think, all right, if I can quit weed, I don't recommend people doing this, so don't follow my path of quitting drugs and becoming sober. But I thought if I can quit weed, the one thing I can't live without, then it'll give me the inspiration to quit everything else. So I stopped smoking weed when I was 17, like at the later stages, 17. Kept doing all the other drugs, like mainly pills and like acid and things like that. But then about 9 months later, I had, for some reason, like I always set in my mind, like, all right, after 6 or so months, you quit weed for this long, you can do anything you put your mind to. So overnight, I went cold turkey and everything. Wasn't easy. I remember I locked myself in my room for 2 weeks as well and did a bit of a detox. My mate would come over and check in on me and all that. Then after those 2 weeks, I was able to, start getting out and about again and getting myself together. But I guess the thing that led up to is probably that week of school is just being really scared and started to reflect like, wow, if I don't sort out my life, I'm probably going to get a serious drug addiction with ice, which I never got addicted to ice. Like I smoked it, but I never pursued an addiction in that.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's probably where my road's going to end, rather there, overdose, or I'm going to end up in jail or something, I'm going to get an outcome in life that I don't want.
Yeah.
So that was the one with drug use. And then in terms of mental health, when I started going to the gym, it gave me a really good vision on what setting goals looks like, because I started to get, closer to my goals in gym. Like I'd set a goal to bench X amount. And I got there. I'm like, all right, well, if I can do that, why can't I do that with other things? And I was at a point where I felt really worthless in life because I got kicked out of school, overcome drug addiction. I wasn't working at the time. And I was like, all right, what's one thing I can do to make myself feel worthy? And like go and complete year 12. All my teachers said I could never do it. A lot of people said I couldn't do it. So I'm like, even though I'm 19, I'm going to go do it anyway. Went to TAFE, studied year 12. And then one class I picked at TAFE was psychology. And then I started to learn a lot of tools and resources around mental health in there. And then that's what sparked the change for me that moment to then start overcoming all the mental health challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
So I guess that brings us into that recovery and career phase of your life. So I guess, that obviously inspired you to pursue a career in the mental health sector.
Yeah.
After overcoming all those personal struggles, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%, because I think literally as I finished my TAFE course, I started an Instagram page called Mental Health Experience, which is now One Talk. It's still the same page, but I just named it different, rebranded it. But back in 2018 when I started it, I was absolutely shitting myself, because I was like, I'm going to open up about mental health. No one really knows this side of me. Like I was so scared to even mention anxiety or depression. I was like, you know what? I know there's going to be so many other people out there who are struggling like me, who are not talking. So I'm just going to post anyway and just try and lead by example. So I started up a mental health page in 2018. And after like 2 months of starting that page, a lady that I knew reached out to me and goes, "Hey, I see all the work that you do online. Would you actually like to do work in person and help people?" I'm like, "Yes, 100%." So she goes, "Why don't you come and volunteer at this residential housing, which accommodates adults with mental health?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I started to volunteer there, and after 3 months, they employed me. And then after I stayed there for about 6 months, then I got a promotion to another role as a case manager for adult mental health in the community. And then through there, I've just kept building within, I guess, the corporate side of the mental health, but then also um, building up One Talk as well with retreats and workshops and podcasting events and all that stuff too.
Yeah, cool, yeah. So I guess, yeah, that kind of covered that next question of how did your personal experiences influence the way you show up as a support worker? Because I guess, you know, with all of that, you know, all of all those experiences that would have played a massive role in the way that you know, that you would have come through as a caseworker or support worker,
Yeah, massively, because like now when I work with people, like I reflect back on myself and what I needed to hear at that time. I didn't want anyone to tell me what to do. So I didn't tell people what to do. I just share my experience and, you know, maybe give a bit of wisdom or advice here and there and just leave them to take the steps, you know, because like when I was doing drugs, like if anyone told me to quit, like I would just step away from. Instead, the thing that would have worked for me is if someone was a role model, builds a rapport with me, and then I probably would have listened to their advice. So that's kind of the approach that I take now, is just to build rapport with people and not tell them what to do straight away. Then eventually start building trust with them, and then they start, you know, listening to my advice, and it becomes a lot easier, you know, once you have rapport with people.
Yeah. And I guess like what's been some of like the most impactful stories that you've had, like from working in the mental health sector, that have kind of like impacted you in a certain way, like and just, I guess, make you realize what you're doing is you know, you're on the right path there, just you know, from working with others and hearing their stories too, you know.
I've got a fair few stories, but I want to think of one, so give me a second.
Yeah, man.
Give me a second to read my handwriting for that.
I think the biggest ones is like when I work with young fellas that I see a version of myself in, and just help them set goals and start structuring like things around them to set them up for life. Because I find, like, you know, when you're 14, 15, you just focus on the now and doing whatever's fun now. But when I'm really able to help someone structure plans and goals and get them a bit more focused on what the future looks like and what you do now actually makes an impact on how you feel now and also how you feel in the future, those results really stick with me, especially for ones that grew up in like a troubled home, in a sense, you know, growing up with DV or, you know, in the system per se, or ones that get caught up in the law and stuff like that. Like, because all the people I've worked with over the years, you know, they're all good people with good hearts, just need a bit of guidance. So
That's right.
I think ones that really stick with me mainly are probably the ones that I see myself in, and just helping them through their challenges, and hopefully with the support around them, see them excel.
Yeah. Do you, because like myself, like I feel like not that I didn't have like a male father figure in my life, but maybe if I had some like elderly positive role model in my life, maybe I wouldn't have gone down that same road as well. Like, do you feel that way? Like, and that's why you feel that way towards these young guys? Like,
yeah, 100%. Because me growing up, like when my dad moved back to England, I was 11. So I didn't grow up with like a father figure in my life, and I think that's probably why I was a bit chaotic growing up, because I didn't have anyone to kind of put me in line or show me the way. Or I remember when I got a job as a carpenter when I was 17, and I shook my boss's hand, and he like just took the piss out of me, like, "What's that for a handshake?" But I didn't know like the whole firm handshake, like I didn't know anything.
Look him in the eyes.
And all that type of stuff. Like no one taught me like the little simple things that
right.
you do and how you show up as a man. And 100%. I see that especially a lot with the people that I have worked with over time, is that some people don't have that father figure in their life, and if you can just be, I never try and step in as a father figure, because I feel like I'm still probably too young to be a father figure to a lot of people, but maybe more like a big brother, you know, just try and show them a way, give them a bit of words of advice, and just try and I guess use my own experience as well, because I find like when I do share my own experience, that's very powerful as well to people, because like, oh well, if this guy can do it, I can do it as well.
Totally.
You've lived through it.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
definitely.
That's right. And I guess, you know, what are still some things that you find, like working in the sector, that's still misunderstood about mental health?
Misunderstood about mental health. I think I might divert the question, but I can
That's
come
right,
back
yeah.
to mental health specifically,
yeah.
because now I'm working with youth.
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing is just like young people are off tap, or young like teenagers are off tap, or you know, like see all the thing about youth crime and youth mental health and all this stuff. But if you look at the bigger picture and see what's going on in these young people's lives, like you don't understand like why they act a certain way, or why they're in certain groups, or why.
That's
So
right.
I feel like a lot more support services need resources to be able to provide support to young people to get better systems around them. So I think the biggest misunderstanding is that it's just hard, because I see a lot of things about youth crime, and it holds it close home to me, because I work with a lot of these young people. I'm like, no, but like, yeah, what they're doing is bad. Like they shouldn't be doing it, but it's like, it's deeper than that, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you saw what their home life is like, you'd have a bit more understanding. Instead of resenting these young people, instead we should, you know, be working with them and helping them and guarding them, instead of,
That's right.
you know, demonizing them.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we should definitely be trying to guard them.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. No, I like that. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the next part with your online presence in your podcast, man. So you previously stated that you did your mental health online in 2018.
Yeah.
But how did you think that was perceived at the time?
My idea of how it was perceived was bad. The actual perception was probably good.
Okay.
Because like my idea of it first, like everyone's judging me, and I was caught up in my own head so much. But then every time I had a conversation with someone that I grew up with, or that knew me, or saw my page and what I was posting, like everyone gave me props for it. So my idea versus other people's ideas was separate. But then over time, I started to believe like I was actually doing something good. That probably took about 6 months at least. But thankfully, the reception was really good. People started to open up to me a lot more, and then I became, I guess, like a safe person for people to come to, which was really fulfilling as well, because I found that one of the biggest things that I find that helped me feel like I'm fulfilled is being able to serve the world and serve other people. So being able to, you know, share a message, but have people open up to you and be able to guide them, or like give them resources to go get help was, you know, massive for me.
Yeah. I was actually just listening to your second podcast this morning, and in the intro to that, you and your co-host both talk about the amount of messages and support that you both got from the episode 1, and you know, episode 1 was just filmed in a library. Yeah, you could hear the echo and people in the background and stuff, and so yeah, that's really awesome that, you know, from those humble beginnings, you know, it's really spurred you on. I mean, we've had kind of much the same too, like from the first couple of episodes too. So yeah,
it's good to hear it.
It's good
It
to hear
validates
it.
the cause.
Hopefully we're as big as Ryan one day.
Well, I've said that plenty of times. I said if we're even 10% of what you are, we're in a good spot, mate.
Yeah, mate.
You're doing good work, I believe as well.
yeah.
But what was the motivation? What was the motivation behind this juggernaut of One Talk?
Like the podcast?
Yep.
The motivation behind it was about 6 months before I started, maybe a year actually. I brought up the idea to the co-host. So the co-host for Backstory was the same guy that helped me get out of my room and I was shaking with anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like he was one of my best mates growing up, Bill. So then I was always speaking to him like, you know, I've got this idea of doing the podcast, and like I just didn't know really how to start it or what to do. And then one day I was just like, look, we just got to do it. And he's like, all right, tell me when. I was like, tomorrow. So I went and bought one microphone, and then once I got the microphone, I sat down with him like, all right, what's the mission of this podcast? And it's to share stories and inspire people. And that was the big purpose behind it to begin with. And it still is today, you know, like I get a lot of different people on with different expertise, different backgrounds, but it's all links into one purpose, you know, them to share a story of how it started to where they are now and the lessons that come along the way. But to start it, man, like Tim said, like I started in the library in Brisbane, the microphone on the table, and there's like 100 people talking in the background, like it was horrible. And episode 2, like, all right, we can't do it in the library. So Bill at the time was studying music at a university in Brisbane, so we set up in one of the classrooms and put one microphone again in the middle of a table, and we sat around it. And eventually we got our first ever guest on, and we did the same thing. And it wasn't until about episode 6, well, episode 5, Bill ended up separating from the podcast and I went solo from there on. But then that's when I started to like, right, I need to get proper audio. Like I need real microphones. I need to make sure it sounds clean and crisp because before then, yeah, the audio quality doesn't sound as good. At one point, for some reason, I thought that I was going to take those first episodes down because every time someone would find my podcast to go to episode 1, I didn't want them thinking that's what every episode sounded like. And I was like, no, it's part of the journey, you know, or it's part of the quest, should I say. You know, it shows, it shows where I've come from to where I am now. And now I'm very glad I never got rid of them.
Yeah.
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 And how's the podcasting journey helped you grow as a person and a professional?
Oh, massively. Like, in terms of like communication skills, because like doing the podcast, a lot of the people, it's like my first ever time speaking to them. So to be able to sit down with someone you've never met and to talk to them for an hour and a half on average, like that's taught me a lot of skills within itself. Because when I first got sober from drugs, like I dealt with chronic social anxiety, like I couldn't even get words out, let alone form a sentence. Now I'm doing like 90-minute to 2-hour podcasts with people. So I guess my communication skills, but also the amount of random information I learn, you know, like I've had that many guests on who just come from so many different backgrounds that are diverse and different industries, and just the amount of things I've learned that have really helped me in like businesses that I build or my own personal life in terms of whether it's the breath work stuff. You know, I've interviewed a guy a few weeks ago who's a specialist on breath work. I've interviewed Frank Grief, who sold his business for 180 million, and also I interviewed Jim Penman, the founder of Jim's Group.
Yeah.
So he generates 500 mil a year. So in terms of business, like I've interviewed people who can give me advice on business. I've interviewed one of Australia's leading neuroscientists, which really helped me understand more of the brain. I've interviewed, like there's just so many different things and of areas of expertise, so many different people I've interviewed. So like it's just like a massive ball of things that have really helped me in every area of life.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. It's like you know what questions are coming, man, because the next question is, man, what is the one episode over your 150 plus eps that you've done, would you say it's had a lasting effect on you so far?
One that's had one lasting effect. Whew. That's the hardest question I've been asked in my life.
Good one.
I'm actually speechless because
like, take your time, dude.
I want to find an answer. I don't want to dodge the question, but while I find an answer, like they're all different because like one could be mental health, one could be business, one could be nutrition, one could be physical health, one could be.
That's right.
They all have different things, but one that lasted with me, like not the best one that got the most downloads, but one that stuck on me the most.
Yeah, from a personal level that just resonated, or
I think it's probably the first ever podcast that made me say wow was an episode with Michael Mojo Johnson. I've done 2 or 3 episodes with him now, but the first one I did with him, that was the first time I've sat down with someone and my mum was just blown with information. Like he was spitting that much wisdom and knowledge and information that I just couldn't keep up. Yeah. I was just in awe. And when he finished talking, I sat there. I'm like, wait, I'm doing the podcast. You got to think of a question.
What was I don't even know who he.
Oh, so Michael Mojo, he does business mentoring.
Yeah, okay.
So, but he does it in the sense of mindset. So he helps people scale their business, but a lot of his fundamentals come from mindset and mental health. But the things he was sharing around finding your values, around limits and beliefs, around setting yourself up to create positive patterns and how to make them long and lasting, around how to create because the way he was viewing the mind was more so of like how you structure a business. It's like, how can we set up this department here, which is like a certain pattern in your mind? Like, how can we set up this department here, which is your belief system? How do we set up this department here, which is your value system? And the way he just broke it down just really intrigued me. So, yeah, I'd say the one that stuck on me now was probably the first episode that made me just think like, wow, that one with Michael Mojo.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm going to look him up.
Yeah. Check out that first episode.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Yeah, definitely going to look that one.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Over to you.
Oh, over to me. Okay. So, you've got into sort of like your workshops and your retreats and stuff like that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so probably the first event that I ran? First ever event I ran was on Bribey. I did a barbecue for mental health. So it was a free event, just for people to come down and get snacks. But it was mainly just to bring awareness to mental health and create positive conversations. And my luck, it happened at the start of COVID, and hypothetically, I went ahead with it, even though restrictions said I couldn't. Hypothetically, you know,
yeah.
telling fibs. But I went ahead with it anyway, and I'm glad I did. Not a lot of people came down, but the people that did come down had good conversations. And there was a bit of like, you think back at the start of the Big C, like it was like, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So props to people that came down, and we had really good conversations. But from there, when I ran that first event, it made me realize the importance of doing things more so in person. So I even did a mastermind. Me and Stephen ran a mastermind in Brisbane back in 2020 or 2021. So we ran a mastermind to help people set up goals around business, personal life. And I think we did that for maybe a year at Deception Bay, which was really cool. And then other events that I've done are just things like, the main ones have been like the big day events. So it starts with like breath work, meditation, ice baths, do all that on the beach. Then we transition to exercise, and then we do like gratitude, good nutrition. And it's like a big like 8-hour day experience where you do multiple things at once. It's all to connect with yourself and to connect with other people. One of the ones I ran with my mate, Chris Walker, we named it Disconnect to Reconnect, and that was the whole purpose of it, like disconnect from the world and reconnect back within yourself. And that was actually probably one of my favorite events. So Chris, if you're watching, let's do that event again, because that was really awesome. I've got one story that I've got from that event. We got the group to write down 3 different notes, and I think one of them was your favorite quote. The second one was a piece of advice you wish you gave to yourself at your lowest point. And I can't remember the third one, but it was along the lines of the first 2. And everyone wrote down on pieces of paper each of the answers from those questions. And I said to them, all right, now go find a stranger and give one note to each stranger. So I hand out all 3 notes, because we were down at the beach at Moffat Beach. And me, I was like, all right, I got to leave from the front and do it myself. So I started walking around. I had this note, and I found this guy, and he looked like probably, in my eyes at that time, probably one of the most unapproachable persons. Like when I first saw him, I was like, I do not want to give this guy this note. He's going to think like, he's probably going to punch me. You know?
He's who I would have gone up to as well.
And then I was like, now after I sat with that for like 2 seconds, like that's the reason why I have to go up to him. So I went up to him, and I was like, hey man, my name is Ryan. I just want to give you this note. And he just like kind of death stared me through his sunnies and didn't like make a noise, didn't tilt his sunnies, and just stood there for like 10 seconds. Now, like, I just thought, right, I've got to say something else. So I'm running this event, I'm wanting to hand out notes and create a positive message, just trying to like ease the room a bit with him. And then he ends up like slowly pulling off his sunnies, and like he's like looking at me really serious. And I was like, oh no, what have I done here? And he goes to me, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And he opens it up, he reads it, folds it back up, and he goes, you wouldn't believe this. And I'm like, what, man? And he goes, all right, so we came from, I think it was Bundaberg. So he goes, me and 10 other people were from a church in Bundaberg. We're part of a missionary. We got in this bus and we started driving on the highway until God told us to take an exit. So they drove until they got to Caloundra exit, and then they said that God told them to take this exit. So they took Caloundra exit. And then they drove until God said pull up. And then they pulled up. And then I was the first person he saw. And I was like, whoa. That's crazy.
Serendipitous.
Yeah. And then he was like to me, this doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. And then he started talking to me about God and the mission they're doing and what they're up to and all that type of stuff. But yeah, that story's always really stuck with me, because I found that pretty profound. I was like, from being, a bit afraid to approach this guy to then now connecting with him, having this conversation, and, feeling like, that we made a real connection. There's a bigger purpose to the thing we were doing that day, which is really awesome. But besides that, events, just mainly a lot of events like that, like the big day events where it's ice baths, physical stuff, masterminds. I'm trying to think of like an event that I've done that's a bit different. The one that's probably the biggest difference would be like the live podcast event that I did in front of an audience. Which is a really cool experience to actually do on in front of a crowd, which is...
That actually segues into my next question.
Oh, really?
Cheers, man. So what goes into planning your live podcast events, and what makes it special for you and the audience?
Man, to begin with, it was a mission. Like, my head was chocker. So I was like, all right, I need to buy a whiteboard. So I got a marketplace, found this whiteboard, and I just, one night, just stayed up and I just scribbled every idea, everything, got it all onto the whiteboard. Now, once I saw it on the whiteboard, it became easier, because because it was out my head. I could actually see it. The biggest regret for the first one is that I didn't hire anyone to help me. I just kind of winged it myself and did it all myself. So I'm like hiring microphones, doing the hire of the event. The place that I hired out to do the event that didn't have chairs, so I had to like find a different place to get chairs. Then the lady forgot to book in the delivery
Didn't
driver.
have chairs.
No, yeah, they didn't have
man.
like chairs. They had like 10 chairs, but I needed 80.
Okay.
So the hire venue that I hired the chairs from was about 30 minutes away from the venue I was doing the podcast at. And I called up the day before and I was like, I'll be there. Can you be here at this time? She goes, oh, I forgot to book him with our drive, and now they're all booked out. So then I have to try and organise a trailer. Got a trailer, then I have to like get there early, and it was very chaotic. But no, I ended up showing up. Everything was settled and sorted, and got it done. But what was the question again?
Just like you're going on about just the planning of the live events and you know what makes it special for you and the audience.
Like, so the planning was that, like making sure I got the chairs, making sure I got like all, I guess, the practical and logistical things. But the biggest thing for planning for me was like, what's something that these, like everyone here can walk away with, you know? So I was like thinking of the guests to bring on, because I had the panel of me and 4 other people. So Toddy Jarrett, Travis Cochran, Kiani Mills, and Ryan Moresby White. And the whole purpose of it was to do with like relationships. So relationship with other people, but more so yourself. Another purpose of it was identity as well, and also your value system. So once I identified those 3 things, and I was like, all right, I know who I want to hit up. There was those 4 people on the panel. They were keen, thankfully, because they're all very knowledgeable and full of wisdom. So I'm still very grateful to this day that they showed up and did that for me. And the event went for about 2.5 hours. So it was about an hour and 45 of podcasting with me and the guest, all talking, going back and forth. And the last 45 minutes was a Q&A, because I wanted to make sure it was interactive as well. So the audience were able to ask questions, and we didn't put a time limit on it. It was just more so until everyone in the audience kind of got a question and everyone was happy with it. And also another thing that we did was to make it more interactive. Like, props to Toddy and Ryan, Kiani and Trav, because they do like work with a lot of clients around mindset and business and all that type of stuff. So they implemented a lot of their own strategies throughout. So like Ryan took us through this childhood process, like visualization from where you are as a child growing up, and it's like a whole 10-minute process to where you are now and achieving your dreams. And Toddy did his own one, Trav did, like, and it's a really cool experience. So I guess one of the biggest things for me was just making sure that the audience had things they can take away, so it leaves an impact with them.
Yeah, totally.
Is that Trav the technician?
Yeah, technician. Yeah.
Shout out, he'll be on.
Yeah, shout out Trav.
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, and then it just leads me really into like what's been the most like rewarding moment of, you know, that you've experienced while hosting these live events. Like, have you really had something that's like really impacted you, like in these live moments that you've just gone, wow, that was like awesome, you know?
Yeah, like for the events and workshops, like they've all got different things. Like for the mastermind that me and Stephen did, it wasn't like you come once and it's like impactful. You have to show up every single week, because we would create goals and then we'll keep you accountable to them the next week. Then we make sure next week we review the goals that you did and how you can improve and make them bigger. And then the goals you didn't do, how we can refine them to align with what your actual bigger goal is. So that one was more so over time. Like we had this guy, 15 years old, and he came in and he wanted to start a business. And this kid's 15, and me and Stephen like kind of blown away by this guy. I'm like, yeah, all right, we can, you know, try and find ways to help you start a business. He didn't know what he wanted to do, but over time we're able to support him, and I guess just creating goals, creating structure, creating the vision. To a point then when he was 16, he created his own window cleaning business. And now I think he's like 18. He's been doing really well over the last couple of years in business.
Awesome.
And he's really thriving in that world. So in terms of the mastermind ones that we did, the long-term results were really great, seeing how people evolved over time and seeing them achieve their goals.
Yeah.
For like the big day events, like the retreat days where we did like an 8-hour retreat, the biggest thing was just seeing people disconnect away from their phones and life and just seeing in the moment, just enjoying everything that they're doing. And at the end of the day, walking away from the day, like, I've actually had such a great day. and being able to provide an experience like that for people
Yeah.
meant so much to me, because
100%.
life's crazy enough, like we all go through our stuff, we all go through our challenges, and to be able to give people a day to do things that are really healthy for your body, your mind and soul, then also have fun doing it as well. That was the thing that really lit me up,
Yeah,
doing the
nice.
retreats and then doing the live podcasting. That was really good because giving people like first-hand experience of what a podcast event feels like, but also being able to actually ask personal questions, because when you listen to a podcast, it's the host that's asking the questions and stuff, but as a guest, they've got questions that are more tailored to them.
Yeah.
So for the audience to be able to ask a personal question that would actually they can start implementing today and take on and hopefully make changes or make adjustments to their own life to better themselves or to improve themselves, that was massive as well. Like to ask me or ask Trav or Kiani or anyone else in that panel like a personal question, and we actually get to break it down, have a real conversation, and especially in an environment where they're all supported as well, because props to the audience, everyone was open and supportive with each other as well. So they've all got their own uniqueness and things that they take away, but I think that's why I love doing events, and I'm kind of always thinking of different ways to do events and find new ways to do events, because I just like that human to human interaction.
Yeah, I've done a couple of your small ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then mentioned the boxing ones
either.
either.
Boxing one, and with Luke Medini, and done some of your breathwork classes. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, so shout out to Luke Medini.
Yeah.
Luke Medini, for people that don't know, he's the Australian Cruiserweight champion. He's also the owner.
Super nice guy.
Super nice guy, absolute legend. He's the owner of CSC Boxing. And when I did a podcast with him, we were just talking. He's like, "Oh, we should do an event together." He's like, "I'll do the boxing. We'll do like physical stuff that he'll do, and then I do the mindfulness, breath work, and meditation." And I'm like, "All right, let's just sort it out. Let's do it in 3 weeks." So 3 weeks later, we had an event, and Tim was there. And
I didn't even know I had those muscles in the back of my legs. Like, man, I was like sore for like 2 days after that. Like,
were you there after when I got in the ring with Luke?
Hey, nah.
So Luke, he's a big fella. He's probably like, how tall do you reckon? He's like 6'3" or something?
6'3", 6'3", 6'4".
6'4", and he's like really long. So like, he just looks like he's a massive dude, right? He's a cruiserweight champion. Anyway, at the end of the event, he's like, "Oh, you want to jump in the ring with me?" And I was like, "Oh, I can't say no." I was like, "Yeah, all right." But thankfully he took it easy on me. But I remember I threw 11 punches at him, all of them missed. And he just bought one on my nose, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not a boxer." But now Luke's a legend, and like Luke, he's always wanted to collaborate with me as well to do more events around mindfulness, because he's big on that like mental health and mindset as well, and wants to bring that energy into his gym and his fighters and the people that come as well. So
organise another boxing event, man. We'll be there.
Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah, we'll come along again.
I was just going to ask, you got any plans in the future to do any more?
Yeah, so me and Luke were meant to run another one, but then for some reason, before I had a kid, I thought it'd be a great idea to do the event 2 weeks after having the baby, for my first baby. Yeah. And once I had the baby, I was like, "Mate, I need a bit of breathing room."
Well, if I remember rightly, your wife was there, right?
Yeah, she was at the first event.
Yeah, what a trooper.
Yeah,
awesome.
She was pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so me and Luke will be running another one. We haven't got a date announced yet, but hopefully in the next couple of months. I want to run my next live podcast event soon. The first one was in the sunny coast. I want to do one in Brizzy. The goal is to like travel and do it, but I really want to do one in Brisbane. But the biggest thing for me at the moment is thinking of topics to discuss, what I want to hit, and then once I figure out the topics, I'm able to figure out the panel of people. But the first thing that comes to mind, I actually might hit up Chris. So I'm just like thinking here, I'm going to hit up Chris and see if he wants to do another disconnect to reconnect. Because thinking back, that was like one of my favorite events that I've done.
Yeah, cool, man.
One to do.
Cool. Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess we've got the last little section here. This is more of a reflection and advice for people, mate. So if you could go back in time to your younger self to give yourself advice or some tips, or what would it be?
Don't smoke that joint.
Yeah. Yep.
This question's so hard because there's two things to it, right? Like if I could tell my younger self personally, like I wouldn't. I'd let him face all those hardships because I know the man he's going to become. Yeah. Then the second part is if I see a young person who's at the age I was back then and going through the struggles I was going through, I wouldn't be like, all right, you know, like
just
leave you.
keep going.
Yeah,
Keep
go
going.
for it. You know, face these hardships. Like I wouldn't advise that to anyone.
Man, I'm exactly the same. Like I don't live by any regrets, and I don't regret anything that I've done because it's made me who I am today. And so, but yeah, like when I often see young people kind of stepping out like that, it's kind of like, oh, I feel like I should kind of help or interject in some kind of way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, well, am I changing their course of the future? Like,
Yeah, but you're helping them not suffer.
well, that's right.
You know?
That's right. And that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like I suffered for a long time,
Yeah.
even though on the outside didn't look like I was, you know, inside and mentally, like, you know, it was very draining.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that's
Yeah.
like the thing too, like, you know, you wouldn't change anything.
Nah.
Unless you're like, would you go back to much in your past? Like, would you tell yourself different, or would you face a lot of the same things knowing, you know, what the lessons were going to be?
I've always said to myself, study harder. But at the same time, I like where I am at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's played out the way it has. And now I think with the podcast and the studying that I'm doing now, I've kind of found like Steve would say, serve others. And
Yeah.
I think that's really rewarding.
Yeah.
And I think that means a lot to me at the moment. So probably not. I'll be the same. Like there's advice I'd give to the other kids. Like I say to my kids, study hard, you know, become a vet, whatever, you know, pretend you can read those animals' minds. But
man.
Yeah.
Mine would just be like save money.
Yeah.
Like learn
Yeah,
about
yeah.
money.
Learn how to manage money.
That's right. Like I got taught how to work and how to make money. Didn't get taught what to do with the money once I had it. So
Same with me, man. Like when I was working as a chef, I'll get paid like $600 a week, but I was spending $600 in 3 days, you know, like, and then not having any money for the next 4 and then get paid again. It was just a cycle.
Totally.
Not knowing how to hold money.
Yeah.
But like if I had to give advice to my younger self, it'd be more so just like planting seeds in my head that I could probably start thinking about and become more curious around the things that I'm doing. Because I was never curious around what I was doing. It was just like, this is what I'm doing, and it is what it is. But if I could plant seeds to make myself more curious, like just to probe questions, like why are you doing this? What's going on in your life? And to be honest, I think the biggest question is just why.
Yep.
You know, why are you doing this?
Okay. Yeah. Well, now that you're older, what daily practices keeps you grounded?
The biggest thing for me, like when I first started to, I guess, get more into like self-development, I tried to do the whole Instagram morning routine, you know, an hour doing like all these different practices, and it just didn't work, didn't stick, and I actually started to hate doing self-care practices. But I started to realize like, no, I've got to redefine what that looks like for me. And instead of it being like a morning thing or a nighttime thing, one thing that I started to realize that I really need to utilize the moments in between, because I started to understand that I've got about at least 4 15-minute pockets a day that I can implement something. So what I implement in those 15 minutes is like breath work, and it's not like the one we did before this podcast every single time. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's like the box breathing like you do, in the nose for 5, hold for 5, exhale out the nose for 5, hold for 5, and repeat. So for me, breath work, I do ice baths probably 80% of the week as well. Got an ice bath at home, so I try to do that about 5 or 6 days a week. I go to the sauna maybe 4 days a week, 5 days a week. I exercise maybe 6 days a week. So those are probably the fundamental things that are non-negotiable in my life. Everything else, like sometimes I'll do a bit of gratitude. Sometimes I'll do like a bit of affirmations, but that's not really a consistent thing. The main things that stick in me is just exercise, ice bath, and sauna, and breath work, and meditation.
Okay. Sweet. And for someone listening in now who is struggling with addiction and mental health issues, what would be the first small step that you would encourage them to take?
Speaking to someone, to be honest, like opening up, because you know you can take the steps to like start taking action, but if you don't speak to anyone, like it's a lonely road, and you don't want it to be a lonely road, because like overcome addiction is hard enough, but then dealing with the challenges that come with being sober can be very isolating. So I reckon actually opening up and speaking to people, and whether that's a friend, whether that's a family member, whether that's going to your GP and getting a referral to a psychologist, whether that's Lifeline, Men's Line, Kids Line, whoever you are, you know what I mean? Like actually speaking to someone, I think that's the biggest first step you got to take.
Totally.
And then from there on, it makes the actions a lot easier, because one, you know, you have support around on the days it gets really tough, because like, even though when I quit, it was just like, I'm done. I still had a lot of temptation
That's right.
But I needed people around me to speak to. Like, look, I'm struggling right now. Good mate of mine, Buggy, like I'd call him like 3 a.m. on like a Tuesday night, and he's got work. He's got to be up for work in like 2 hours. But bless his soul, like he'd actually answer the phone and stay on the phone with me. But like, just having people like there for me to get me through those tough times were massive. And I think if I never opened up, I never would have stayed consistent with staying clean. I think I would have stayed consistent in trying to improve myself or better myself. And I guess that was probably, the biggest fundamental for me was talking.
Yeah, cool, man. That's awesome.
It seems to be a common trend, isn't it?
Yeah,
talking
man,
and being honest.
Gotta open up, be honest. Yeah,
That's the thing. Like, it's not a cliche. Like, it's a very cliche saying, but it holds so much weight.
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a new dad, and before I became a dad, everyone would say to me, being a dad, it's the best thing in the world. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But then once I became a dad, I'm like, wait, there's actually weight to it. Like, it makes sense now.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with opening up. Like, it's very cliche, and a lot of people say it, but a lot of people say it for a reason, because it has so much weight behind it. Because it actually means so much.
Yeah. And I just got one last question for you.
Yeah.
As a top podcaster, what can you give a couple of newbies? What's the advice?
Some free tips
to a couple of noobs in the scene, man.
It depends on what your goals are, because there's probably so many tips I could give, but I don't want to give a tip that will push you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's what's the goal with the poddy? What's in
the cause, man?
Yeah,
it's really
real talk, no bull, man. That's it. And yeah, I guess just we're just a couple of dudes, being open, honest, talking about the real world stuff that needs to be talked about. And hard hitting stuff.
A lot of it at the moment's based on men's mental health and helping dads and lads through similar issues that we've experienced. But the cast is for everyone.
Yeah.
But that was at the moment. That's our.
What do we got, Dean? 15% female listenership.
There we
at
go.
the moment,
Keep
so
listening in. So it's like I said, it's for everyone. So
a couple in, so but it's all right,
But why is real talk no bull? Why is that saying so important to you?
Well, we said this on our first episode where we chatted that when someone that isn't, I guess, a professional, I think I found a lot of the stuff that professionals say to me, I'm hearing from other friends and other dads, and when it comes from someone who's on your level, I find that it resonates more. And a lot of advice that I've been given or have taken from people who are just on my blue collar level, it's kind of like shit. Well, there's guys at work that have given me advice that I was just like, the same advice that someone else had given me that I've paid for their services. And I was just like, oh, whatever. Yeah. But then when they gave me that same advice, it was just like, fuck, yeah, all right. And then it just hit home, and I put that more into practice. So for me, that's what real talk, no bull is. Just not sugar-coated conversation. Yeah.
There's no point in beating around the bush. I mean, fuck, I'm 40 plus now, man. There's no time to beat around the bush anymore. I
guess the biggest tips I can give them would be keep being yourselves. That's the biggest thing, keep being yourselves and stick to the mission.
Yeah.
But also just consistency. That's the biggest thing with podcasting is consistency. I think the statistic is 80 or 90% of podcasters quit before episode 20.
Okay.
And I think only 1% make it to episode 100.
Okay.
So if you want to, if the goal is to be successful in podcasting, and success isn't material, success is just whatever you guys define as success.
That's right.
But if you want to be successful in your own right to podcasting, the biggest thing is just consistency.
Yeah, all right.
Keep showing up.
Yeah, man. Can do that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, man.
It's been fantastic, It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. It was some good things to take out of that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been good being able to be on the other side of a microphone as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm a guest on the podcast, because I don't do it as often, sometimes I try and jump in and be the host again, try and start asking too many questions. I'm like, no, wait, I need to answer questions. But it's cool to be on the other side of the microphone and to have a good conversation with you lads and sit down and have a real conversation about things that I've been through and potentially people can relate to, and stick to the whole motto of real talk, no bull.
Yeah, man.
And just one more thing, mate. I was going to say thank you.
Yeah.
for all the tips, advice, help from the fucking very beginning when I came to you with the ideas that we were going to do this.
Yeah.
Just everything that you've done for us. Yeah, just we really appreciate it, man. And thank you so much.
Oh, it's all good, man. Like, for me personally, I just love seeing people win and thrive. Like, to be honest, I probably get more joy out of seeing other people win than seeing myself win. Like, sometimes, I can put myself back, and I'm sure a lot of men can relate to that. Like, we want to provide and do so much for other people. But I want to see people win, especially, blokes like yous, giving it a real crack, creating positive conversations, because the people that are going to be listening to your podcast are going to connect, they're going to resonate and relate to it. And you don't know, like, what changes podcasting can leave, because, like, the episodes that you record today, or the last few episodes that you have recorded, they don't just come out in that day and they're done. Like, these things last for, like, if internet and Spotify and YouTube and all that's still around in 500 years, like, those episodes are still going to be there.
That's right.
So someone in 500 years time, so like, great grandchildren, so 10 generations after us could be listening to this podcast right now, knowing what our great granddad was up to.
That's right.
And hearing these conversations and actually learning so much knowledge and information, because I think about, like, if I could listen to 10 generations before me speak about their life, what they were going through, what life was like at that time, like, how many lessons we could learn. Like, a lot of the things that we do learn are already from the past, whether it's scripture from, like, religious texts, whether it's philosophy, whether it's stoicism, like, there's so many different lessons that come from the past.
That's right.
But so much knowledge and information has been lost over time. But now we're in an era where we can actually stamp a digital footprint on the world that can last forever. And it's cool to know, like, generations after us will be listening to this.
Mate, I'm laughing at that because just before, when it was just me, Abby, and Dean here, I was wondering where that came from. And I remember you told me that.
Yeah.
That's the best part about this, is that the future generations are going to be able to dig up and say, oh, that was Grandpa, or that was blah blah blah. And I was saying that to Dean before, that, I was saying to my daughter Abby, I said, oh, one day when you have kids, you'll be able to say that's Grandpa. And she hit me with, I'm not having kids.
Yeah.
But anyway,
good girl.
Good girl. But yeah, dude, mate, you're spot on, eh?
Yeah.
Like, that's so much truth.
Yeah, no, awesome, man, awesome.
Yeah, man.
Pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me on, lads.
Absolute
Been a pleasure,
pleasure, man.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, man. Really
Cheers.
appreciate it.
And that's a wrap.
Woohoo!